Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there lived a beautiful princess named Snow White. She had skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony. The queen, Snow White's stepmother, was jealous of her beauty. She had a magic mirror that she asked every day, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" The mirror always replied, "You are the fairest of them all." But one day, the mirror said, "Snow White is the fairest of them all." The queen was furious. She ordered a huntsman to take Snow White into the forest and kill her. "Bring me her heart as proof," she demanded. The huntsman took Snow White into the forest, but he couldn't bring himself to harm her. "Run away, dear princess," he said. "Never return to the castle." Snow White ran deep into the forest. She was scared and lost, but soon, the forest animals came to her aid. They led her to a small cottage. Snow White entered the cottage. It was small and cozy, with 7 tiny chairs and 7 tiny beds. "Who lives here?" she wondered. That evening, the 7 dwarfs who lived in the cottage returned home. They were surprised to find Snow White asleep in their beds. Snow White woke up and explained her story to the dwarfs. They felt sorry for her and invited her to stay with them. Snow White lived happily with the dwarfs. She cooked, cleaned, and kept the cottage tidy. The dwarfs adored her, and they all became great friends. One day, the queen asked her mirror again, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" The mirror replied, "Snow White, who lives with the 7 dwarfs, is the fairest of them all." The queen was enraged and decided to take matters into her own hands. She disguised herself as an old peddler woman and went to the dwarf's cottage. The queen offered Snow White a poisoned apple. "Take a bite, dearie," she said. Snow White, unaware of the danger, took a bite and fell into a deep sleep. When the dwarfs returned home, they found Snow White lying lifeless on the floor. They were heartbroken and placed her in a glass coffin. The dwarfs placed the glass coffin in the forest. Animals and birds kept watch over Snow White, hoping for a miracle. One day, a prince was riding through the forest and saw Snow White lying in the glass coffin. He was captivated by her beauty and gently kissed her. Snow White awoke with the prince's kiss. She was amazed and happy to see the prince. The dwarfs and animals rejoiced, and the prince asked Snow White to marry him. The news of Snow White's revival reached the queen. In her rage, she accidentally destroyed her magic mirror and lost all her powers. The queen was banished from the kingdom and wandered the lands, powerless and forgotten. Snow White and the prince lived happily ever after. The prince and Snow White began preparing for their grand wedding. The dwarfs and forest animals helped with the decorations and arrangements. The day of the wedding arrived. The whole kingdom gathered to celebrate the union of Snow White and the prince. There was music, dancing, and feasting. Snow White and the prince exchanged vows under a beautiful arch of flowers. "I promise to love and cherish you forever," they said to each other. After the wedding, Snow White and the prince moved into the royal palace. They ruled the kingdom with kindness and wisdom, beloved by all their subjects. The 7 dwarfs often visited the palace, bringing gifts and stories from the forest. They remained dear friends to Snow White and the prince. Snow White and the prince embarked on many adventures together. They explored distant lands and helped those in need, spreading joy and kindness wherever they went. Under their rule, the kingdom flourished. Peace and prosperity reigned, and the people lived happily. Snow White and the prince were beloved by all. The forest creatures often visited the palace, bringing their own form of magic and joy. Snow White never forgot her friends from the forest. Snow White and the prince were blessed with children. They raised their family with love and taught them the values of kindness and courage. As the years passed, Snow White and the prince's love only grew stronger. They faced challenges together and celebrated countless joys, always supporting each other. And so, Snow White and the prince lived happily ever after. Their love and kindness left a lasting legacy, and their story was told for generations to come.
ご視聴ありがとうございました。チャンネル登録して、いいねボタンを押していただけると、とても励みになります。新しい動画もお楽しみに。